Hello, everyone. I was having some problems with my main computer. Signed in on my laptop at the moment while my main computer looks like it's finally sorting itself out. But I figured I'd come on my laptop and let everybody in. I see I am in here twice. It's not showing up on my other screen yet, but it should in a moment. The computer's only been rebooting for 20 minutes. That's really sweet. Can you all hear me okay?
I hear you good.
Okay, thank you.
Can hear you loud and clear.
I hear you, ma'am.
Okay, God, I don't know what's wrong because I need this big screen in order to do screen sharing. There's no way I can do it on a MacBook Air. I'm going to try force quitting Zoom and relaunching it and see if that helps. But in the meantime, we can get started to see if there's any public comment, and I'll do the best I can on the little screen for right now. Ms. Arrowwood had let me know we hadn't been able to meet in the 2 weeks. She had ordered a Zoom for Dummies book, but not able to screen share yet. I might ask someone else if they're available to do that if my computer doesn't straighten itself out, because it's not happening on an 11-inch laptop. I see a few people are still coming in.
And so you're just asking if someone can do screen sharing?
My computer just came up. So hold on, you guys are seeing me twice now. I'm gonna go to that other computer. Let me turn this volume off and this video off. Okay. Can you guys hear me here now?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. All right. Sorry about that. That was interesting, but we will call to order at 6:49 Mountain Time. I guess that's 8:49 Eastern Time. I need to pull up the agenda. And I just got the rest. Just got Gmail or G Suite up, so let me pull that up. But in the meantime, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak in public comment? Just hit the reaction button and raise your hand. It's also an opportunity for anyone on the committee that has something to say that really wouldn't fit under an agenda item. Mr. Brown.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say that I might have to leave this meeting early because I've got another meeting. I actually had 3 tonight, 1 in person. But if I do have to leave, I'll still be available by text message or cell phone if you need me.
Okay, I truly appreciate that. Anyone further? And I am getting the agenda pulled up, and then I will start screen sharing. But before then, I actually, one second, get the agenda up here. I did have something to report to you guys because I had a little task before the next meeting, but I wanted to make sure there wasn't anything else on the agenda. It's coming up now. And I do encourage you all to take a look at the agenda. not just for the agenda items, but in the beginning of each agenda, there's a bunch of links, such as the video from the last meeting, my draft timeline, master proposal sheet, and so on. Before we get, though, to approval of the minutes, I did want to give the brief report I had promised you all. And what that is we left off on that member proposal from Mr. Molman, and I was able to look at the categories of prior membership reports from staff, which was a subject of our discussion. I spoke with the party chair and spoke with the party executive director at length on the issue of potential confusion with or off bylaws use of the term member. Both of them are continuing to look at this extensively. The membership report is being redesigned, and any confusing or potentially violative use of the term member will not be done going forward. Everyone is clear that the term member means at a minimum someone who has signed the membership pledge. So whatever decisions we may wish to make on bylaws should not be driven by any past staff practices, as these are in the process of being put into compliance to the extent that they haven't been in the past with the bylaws as they're presently worded. The other thing I wanted to let you guys know, you were watching on the bylaws list, we do have a rationale subcommittee. So I'd like to thank Paul Bracco and Rob Latham for volunteering to do this work, and to be clear to everyone, they won't be making any final decisions, but they'll be working with me on recommendations for the committee's consideration as we get closer to drafting our report. One second here. 3 people would be ideal on this committee. So if anyone else wants to volunteer, including an alternate, please let me know. We could have more than 3, but 3 is pretty ideal. And I'll periodically include status updates from them in our future agendas. I had one request for Madam Secretary. If on the minutes, and I know we're getting to that, I'm trying to have us conform to standard markup language. So for items that are being stricken, I see you did use red text. If you could use red bold strike through, and for additions, use blue underline, that makes it easier rather than just the red font and the blue font. Bold it, and for red, use strike through, and for blue, do underline, because that's the way our report will be presented as well. So we're going to move to approval of the minutes, but I'd like to share my screen. Give me 1 second. You all should be seeing my screen right now. And you also have a link to the agenda and the thread for notice for this meeting. It would be helpful if you had that up on your desktop to the extent that you can. There's a link to the draft minutes there. So this is the opportunity now for any corrections to those minutes. I did note that one formatting change that I'm requesting, but does anyone have anything further?
Yes, I have one thing. I believe it's the top of the last page. Motion to adopt proposal B. It says pass 712, and I believe that numbering is correct, but it has 2 no's. If I remember correctly, Mr. Seebeck was a yes on that proposal.
Could we put that back up again to refresh my memory?
The amendment?
That was the
Proposal B.
that was the $50.
Changing from $25 to $50. And I'm pulling up here. So it should be on the screen for you guys right now.
Just a little bit down from there.
Yeah, but he wanted to see the language, so it's
Oh,
up
sorry.
top
I,
here.
I see it. I don't honestly remember what I voted on that, but I'm pretty sure I didn't vote no.
So this is what I would suggest. I would suggest that we adopt these provisionally, pending, understood that the secretary will recheck the video for those votes and have Mr. Seebeck correctly noted if it's not correctly noted now, and do those minor formatting changes. And with the proviso that those things are done, I would propose that we adopt these or approve these minutes.
Ooh, I have one more.
Go ahead, Mr. Latham.
Can you scroll to the very top of the document? Libertarian is misspelled.
Yeah. We're not libertarian. Okay, I'm
Well,
sure.
we're always libertarian, but I think we should still,
Wilden and libertarian.
that's right.
Okay, I'm sure the secretary can take care of that, Mr. Seebeck.
It's hard to tell because of the small text, but is my name spelled correctly there, right in the appointments line?
Yeah, it's Seebeck, Ms. Arrowood, not Seeback. So B-E-C-K.
Thank you.
Oh, no. Tell me once again, Nick, how to pronounce your last name so I can write down the phonetic one more time.
Siselski.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, my first name's misspelled. It's actually technically Nickolas.
Oh, okay. So Nickolas. Okay. I'm sure Ms. Arrowood will get that. Mr. Latham, your hand's still raised?
Yeah, one more. Can you go to, I guess, the minutes on proposal B? Thank you. And up, that's been fixed.
Okay.
Unanimous had been misspelled in a prior version. So that's it.
Yeah, unanimous. We purged the rodents.
One other thing, I think that the motion to adopt proviso, I believe it was a motion to amend the proviso, like current membership lapse or the adjournment, like from the or and later on in that proviso listed up at the top. It was the initial existing proviso was for current sitting members to go in effect when the memberships lapse, period. And then the amendment without objection was to add everything after the or.
And the proviso needs to be included in the minutes because that is going to be part of our proposal. And that is not recorded. So we do need to have the language of the proviso in here.
It is
I
there.
see it. It's up there. Got it. My eyes crossed. Thank you, Mr. Brecka.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure that it matters all that much. It's just that it was a motion to amend the proviso, not a motion to adopt the proviso.
Yeah, because the proviso is part of the proposal. It was part of the entire motion to adopt the proposal. I think that probably should say motion to amend proviso by chair without objection. Mr. Seebeck?
Yeah, I'm a little puzzled here. Is the way this is written out, the proviso should be separate from the wording of the actual bylaw, right? It looks like it's trying to run them together there.
Well, she does have them noted. I'm not going to be too concerned about the formatting. That's going to be taken care of in our reports. That's why I got confused. I'm used to seeing it separately, but I don't think there's any standard format for minutes.
Okay, so the wording of the bylaw then just ends at the or, is that correct?
Yeah, because it goes, there's a new section after that we didn't touch.
Okay,
This
that
is
makes sense.
a list of items. This is 4.3A. That's all we amended. It goes on to a B that we didn't touch.
Okay, that's cool.
And just for everyone's reference, in the drive, and it's also, actually, let's go back to the agenda. In the agenda, you'll see a link for a working copy of amended bylaws. If you go there that's really where you need to look to make sure like things like the proviso are separate. So let's go to Article 4.3. My computer is deciding it's going to take a moment. We might end up going back to that because I don't want you all to just be looking at a spinning beach ball. When that comes up, I will pull it up for you. But since there were more than now a couple changes, I'll ask Ms. Arrowood to submit version 3 to the list, and we'll either approve. Once version 3 is submitted to the list, I'll sponsor an email ballot to approve those. I ask that everyone, when the minutes are posted, can we please try to get all the corrections on the list? We have, this time is much better spent doing proposals. I don't think I have the proviso in here, so that's a good catch. I need to get the proviso in here. So thank you, Mr. Seebeck. We have this change here to A, but I need to stick the proviso in here. I'll make a note of that and I'll take care of that. Okay, so since the minutes will be going to version 3 on the list, we're going to move on to the rest of the agenda. We had continued from last meeting. We were in the middle of proposal C from Mr. Molman. When we had adjourned, Mr. Bracco had an amendment. I told him that I would recognize him first for his amendment. I'm going to pull up the proposal. And I also need to pull up, because for this meeting, I'll be doing the notes on the screen. So there's going to be some flipping back and forth. Okay, so here is this is the part of the proposal we were on. Mr. Molman's proposal, look here, has more changes than just this part, but here is what we had discussed so far. His entire proposal goes into if the first part passes, he has a second part, but we haven't gotten to the first part yet. So Mr. Bracco, I'm going to recognize you for your amendment.
Sure. So this would be in what is 4.2C, and the amendment would be to strike "which are not confusingly similar" and insert "provided that all membership levels require signatory membership."
Okay, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Sure. So I'm not really sure what the "not confusingly similar," I am confused about it. I think I understand the intent, but it is very vaguely worded. So I know that there are people who are not certain. We certainly heard from a few that were not very big fans of it, allowing somebody to be a member without being a signatory member. So this is, if we're going to do anything here, I think we put something that's concrete, and this is concrete. What is it? What does it mean? It means you can have all these different levels, but you have to be a signatory to qualify as a member.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bracco. Just for everyone to know, because these things are so interrelated, technically, we should only be speaking on the amendment unless someone's going to object. The chair is going to state that your debate almost inevitably is going to get into the main motion as well. And I'm going to allow latitude on that, as I think it's somewhat inevitable. Mr. Seebeck, then I have myself, then I have Mr. Latham, then I have Mr. Siselski. Mr. Seebeck.
yes, that the previous statement by Madam Chair is actually correct in this case, because what I was going to say kind of wanders in both directions. So I pray for a little latitude here. As originally worded, members by implication for other levels of membership required the signature as well. Putting this in here does make that more concrete and explicit, and I think it's may not be necessary, but I think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Mr. Seebeck. I am going to urge the committee to vote down the amendment. And just to give you a peek, if the amendment is voted down, I am going to be moving a substitute below. I think we solve all the problems, and a substitute would be a substitute, not just for an amendment for Mr. Molman's proposal. I don't think adding all these words is necessary. Any potential confusion, this seemed to have been spawned by some really bad policy manual language that the LNC was using that have since been deleted. The policy manual does not read the way it used to. It's been extremely simplified, and staff has already assured me they're redesigning the membership report. Any confusion that they had will no longer be an issue. I don't think we need to do this, to me, very confusing change, adding a new word signatory. Obviously, I'm opposed to removing the pledge. I think the only thing we need to do is make it clear that the word member now and in the future is exclusively for people who have signed the pledge. So adding that one word, the substitute I have gets rid of all those changes and just adds one word, I think solves all of the perceived problems that we have here. Mr. Latham, then Mr. Siselsky, there's a whole line, but I'll just do the next two. Mr. Latham.
Yeah, Madam Chair, maybe two requests for information here. So in looking at these proposals, I'm seeing it as some of the amendments you had mentioned pet memberships and child memberships. So would this get rid of at least the pet memberships? And then I think the child ones, if they are of an age where they cannot really sign anything. I'm just wondering how that would play out. And then back to the mention of staff adjusting how member has been calculated or reported. I'm hoping, and maybe you'll just let us know, will they tell us how it was done in the past and maybe what differences there will be going forward, just so we can see what changes may have been made, rather than just here's how we're doing it going forward.
Sure. I know Ms. Houston is still getting to the bottom of it. I can tell you my opinion is, in examining the membership reports, that they have not been using the word member for anything other than a dues payer. But I don't want to categorically say that, because I have not yet received the absolute confirmation from our executive director whether or not that has happened. She's still investigating, but nobody, the chair or the executive director, is remotely unclear that member means somebody that signed the pledge. The issue with the pet membership and the children membership, they're one membership, which I personally, as an LNC member, have a problem grouping children in with pets. This was passed by a past LNC. I did not vote for it. However, in the policy manual, they use the word member and then say this is for people who can't sign the pledge. The LNC is amending that. The party chair agrees that that policy manual is violative of the bylaws. It will be on either an email ballot coming shortly or at our next meeting. That is getting fixed. The chair is aware that I would be raising a point of order if we didn't just go ahead and switch it. The reason it hasn't been yet is the chair is working with the executive director. We're probably going to be having a special designation that will not be called member, that will be called something like companions of liberty, and it will only be pets. It will not be children. But the reason it hasn't been done yet, it's marketing. The executive director is pondering what would be the best wording for fundraising purposes, but that will be fixed in February.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. Sazowski? Oh, were you done, Mr. Latham? I'm sorry.
Yes, I was
Okay.
done.
All right, Mr. Sazowski.
Okay, well, the new wording, I think, improves upon the, which, the former wording there. I am additionally a little bit confused, because with the existence of dues paying member on there and then putting in, below that here, provided that all membership requires signatory membership, is that more or less, canceling out the existence of dues paying members, quote unquote? Or, I'm a little bit confused with what exactly it's doing, or if this only applies to other levels of membership outside of whatever dues are. And if that makes sense.
Mr. Sazowski, I will let Mr. Bracco answer your point of information, but Mr. Bracco, please don't get into debate. If you could answer that point of information from Mr. Sazowski.
If it cancels, I'm not sure. I- I guess it doesn't, because it says may create other levels, and my interpretation could definitely be wrong, but to me it would mean that other levels are levels other than those specified here. So I guess no, but I'm not super confident on that.
Okay, I could just let you know, Mr. Sazowski, I think Mr. Bracco is correct, but I do think it makes things more confusing.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Molman.
Okay. That's the whole thing is what it is. I'll note that our current language came into effect in 2008. I think the rationale that I used to original language, that we had active membership and sustaining membership that were both $25, had different criteria. Normal ass people have no idea all the weird nuanced criteria. Thinking of it from what I'm concerned about is if we don't fix it, I mean fix it in bylaws, a future LNC will again get back to where the previous LNC or current or whatever, where they were on this, where they can define whatever. So I am fine with the amendment to require that the signatory be a requirement. Insofar as the previous point of inquiry, I was actually gearing up, if this passes or even if it doesn't, to make it ask for an amendment to change dues paying member to just be dues payers. So that way they're not a member, they're just dues payers. And I think that might resolve all of it, but whether we make this change or not is fine. I think it actually does address, I hope, Ms. Harless is concerned that anyone is called a member that has not signed the pledge. And with one more tweak after this, we can make sure of that in the bylaws as well. So I would urge the committee to support the amendment and that we get to a point where you can't be a member without signing the pledge in any way, shape, or form. Again, it'll take one more amendment to do that. But just because the LNC now is fixing the issue, or the office is fixing it now, doesn't mean that a decade or more from now, some future LNC will recreate the problem that previous LNCs created. So a momentary fix in a policy manual is not a long-term fix, and that's my concern. Making it clear in the bylaws that a member must be a signatory member, and making it clear that there are no other types of memberships other than signatory members, I actually think is critical to make clear. And again, I just want to make sure we don't end up in a scenario again where we have $25 or whatever the amount is, in the bylaws, and then also the office or LNC or whoever, somebody outside the convention body, creates another membership level that is the same amount of money, but has different criteria on it, thus is confusing to normal people. That's where I was trying to go with the not similarly confusing language originally. But that's the point, is that membership should not be a Rube Goldberg device that someone has, that a normal person can't reasonably figure out, because there are confusingly similar things, both labeled membership with the same amount of money, but one is, oh, I signed the pledge. Oh, I haven't signed the pledge. Oh, it's money certain ways, but not other ways. I think we have to clarify this so that going forward, future LNCs, future bylaws committees, future members are not confused by this. I mean, that's my goal in proposing this, is to eliminate the confusion. And I think Mr. Bracco's amendment helps address Ms. Harlow's concern on people using member.
Ms. Janice, if you can mute yourself, please. Mr. Bracco?
So I do have, this might be more of a procedural question. So we have this amendment, and I guess whether it passes or doesn't, at some point we would be moving on to the second part of Mr. Mullins' proposal. If we were to go to the substitute, if the substitute were to replace this and then it passes, would we also move to the second part of Mr. Mullins' proposal?
I can tell you my intent, Mr. Bracco. I think those 7 parts, I mean, those second parts, which are the bylaws article 5.2, 8.1, and 10.2 should actually be dealt with separately. I think they're completely separate issues that the delegates are going to want to vote on separately. It's requiring certain levels of, it's requiring sustaining membership in order to sign a petition for affiliation to be on the JC. And as one of the alternatives to be a delegate, I think that's completely unrelated here. And I would intend, if my substitute passes, on moving those separately, with the exception of 10.2, because I think people are looking at that in general, perhaps requiring sustaining membership to be a delegate just in general. But I definitely would like to move 5.2 and 8.1, but I think they're separate issues, and that we need to be careful as a committee from combining way too many issues in one proposal, because they can be divided on the floor upon the demand of one member anyway. I think we should just present them separately. So the answer is yes, we will, but not today. They'll be presented separately if my substitute passes.
Okay. So just one follow-up to that. In the interest of time, and given that Mr. Mullin has said that he's planning to introduce an amendment to his own proposal, and that he likes this, I'd actually like to withdraw this amendment proposal and just ask that, pretty please, Mr. Mullin, can you include this language in yours? And then
That's,
hopefully we can just vote on one.
that's not. Mr. Bracco, we've already started debating this.
Okay.
It can only be withdrawn without amendment, I mean, without objection, and I would object. We're too far into the process at this point.
Okay.
Ms. Arrowood.
I should have put my hand down because my question was answered by the debate. Sorry.
Oh, okay, thank you. I had myself next, but Mr. Martin hasn't spoken yet, so I'd like to have Mr. Martin speak before me.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. So is this the right time to speak to the substitute, or or not?
these things are kind of jumbled together. I'm giving a lot of latitude in this debate. So yes, I'll permit it, but just so everyone knows, the substitute hasn't been moved yet, but I have every intent of moving that the minute we get to the point where it's appropriate.
All right. Well, really, my comment here spans all of this stuff. So one of the things I'm seeing here is this term dues paying member. And that's not appropriate because somebody who's only paid dues is not a member. So what I would like to suggest is that, you know, that we understand, not necessarily that this be part of the proposal, but that somebody who's paid us money but not signed the pledge is simply a donor. They are not a member and that term, that word should not be used in association with them because that will be confusing. So that's really all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay, we're getting to the point where we will be voting on the amendment once, whether the amendment passes or not. The minute we dispose of the amendment, I will be moving my substitute. But I think the information I'm going to say is relevant to how we're going to deal with the amendment. If we are going to stay with Mr. Molman's main motion, I like it better with the amendment than without. However, I think it's all unnecessary. This all started because there was a confusion as to what was a member. If we want, we can mind the subjunctive about what a future LNC might do. And I don't think that's particularly productive to today. What we need to make clear is that a member is someone who signed the pledge, and that will foreclose any future LNC from doing anything of the sort. We don't need to add all of these words in the confusion we've shown here to do that. We just need to add one word and all these problems are solved. I am adamantly opposed to adding a new category in the bylaws of being dues payers. That implies membership. Dues implies membership, whether you use the word member or not. And adding the word donor is unnecessary. Everyone knows you give money to something, you're a donor. We don't need to put that in the bylaws. There's no benefit for it. They get no rights. And this seems to think that it implies some kind of rights, and it opens the door to have a category of person officially in our bylaws that has not signed the pledge, which dilutes the purpose of the pledge, which is to protect us from the government charges of domestic terrorism. I'd be adamantly opposed to that. If the concern really is, you know, LNC's doing something funny, confusion, my substitute of adding one word solves it. We don't need to do all of this. Mr. Seebeck.
I think what it comes back to here is a very simple question. Do we want to rely on implicit or do we want to make it explicit? Yes, the Bracco amendment makes, and the amendment actually, excuse me, the amendment does make what is already explicit in the Bracco amendment more explicit. There is a problem there with the dues paying members part. That is correct, as Mr. Martin had said. The exclusivity substitute may provide the same solution, but is it better to err on the side of caution and be more explicit, or is it better to go for brevity, which may accomplish the same thing but may not? That's the question we have to sort out here.
Thank you, Mr. Seebeck. I will note that when the substitutes move, someone could add the Bracco amendment to the substitute that will have both exclusively and that sentence if we want to padlock the pledge part. And I have absolutely no issue that. Is there any further debate on the Bracco amendment? Because that's what the voting will be on, even though the chair has allowed the debate to stray a little bit. Okay, seeing none, Ms. Arrowood, we will go to a roll call vote. What we are voting on again is to add to Mr. Molman's proposal. Actually, you struck out which are not confusingly similar, correct, Mr. Bracco? I should have made that red.
That is correct.
Okay.
I wasn't sure what color to make it because
Well,
it's
this was on me.
striking out something that was added.
Yeah, I'm going to make it purple. yeah, so we're striking out in the Molman proposal, which are confusingly similar, and inserting, provided that all membership levels require signatory membership. That is what we are voting on. That is it. So a yes will strike, which are confusingly similar, and instead insert, provided that all membership levels require signatory membership. A no vote will leave it simply as, which are not, I don't want to say simply as, we'll leave it as it was originally proposed, as which are not confusingly similar. Ms. Arrowood, when you are ready.
Madam Chair, we did not take attendance, and
Aha.
I'd like to double check if Mike Rufo is online.
And Ms. Arrowood, if you would like to take attendance first so that you have a complete record and then move to the roll call vote. I apologize for, I did this last time too. I need to put a big note to remember to do attendance. So if you would like to do that first.
Okay. Arrowwood, present. Bracco,
Present.
Nicholas Sizelski,
Present.
Karen Ann Harlos,
Present.
Rob Latham,
Here.
Frank Martin,
Present.
Ken Molman,
Present.
he's here.
Yes.
All right. Tom Rowlett,
Present.
okay, Mike Rufo. Mike Rufo,
He is absent.
all right, then that would move Mr. Moulton up.
It's Dr. Moulton, just
Oh,
FYI.
okay. All right. Michael Seebeck,
Present.
okay, thank you. All
Are you
right,
going to ask for the role of the alternates?
yes, of course. Okay, Chuck Moulton,
Present.
yes, and you'll be moved up, sir. Rich Tomaso. Rich Tomaso. Okay. Dave Robertson. All right. David Robertson. Greg Deal. Roger Roots. Data Logan,
Now present.
thank you. Dean Rogers,
Also present.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Arrowood. So we have one primary absent. So Dr. Moulton will move into the primary slot. If you would take roll call vote, please, on the Bracco amendment.
All right. Okay. Arrowwood, I'm going to vote yes. Bracco,
Yes.
Sizelski,
Yes.
Latham,
No.
Martin,
Yes.
Molman,
Yes.
right? Dr. Moulton,
I abstain.
all right, sir. Tom Rowlett
Yes.
and Mike Seebeck,
Yes.
all right.
I may be missing something, so I'm going to change my vote to yes.
This is Mr. Bracco?
It
This
was
is
Mr.
Mr.
Latham.
Latham.
Oh, Latham, okay, sorry, I didn't know, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and Ms. Harlos?
I will expressly abstain. I will only be voting on things where my vote can
Alright.
break or cause a tie.
All right, so our vote then is 8, 2, 0, 0.
Okay, thank you. The Bracco amendment passes. I see Mr. Molman's hand raised, but I did give notice that I was going to move my amendment once my substitute, once the Bracco amendment either was disposed of. However, I believe I know what Mr. Molman wants to do is to further amend his proposal. When a substitute is pending, they both are open for amendment. So right after the substitute is moved, Mr. Molman, I'll recognize you to do what you want to do because that will be in order at that time. I am moving the substitute here, which is completely removes everything that had been done before and well, it hasn't been done, proposed, and instead will add the word exclusively to Article 4.1 so that it would read members of the party shall be exclusively those persons who have certified that they oppose the initiation of force to achieve political or social goals. I've already spoken sufficiently to it. So where we are at presently with a substitute is they are both fully open to amendment, but for the sake of orderliness, we will take amendment to the Molman main motion first. And once that is perfected, we will take amendment to the substitute, and then we will vote between the two. Mr. Molman.
There we go. Yes, so I would like to move to amend, change dues paying members where it occurs, to be dues payers.
Okay, one moment, let me just change this color. Oh God, I know it's just my OCD. I don't like all these. It's Word has different colors. So you are basically, so you're moving to strike dues paying members.
Right.
I want to put that in purple actually until we dispose of it. Format, text, strike through, and instead make it, and I'm assuming it will be in quotes as well.
Yes. Dues
I'll
payers.
payers is ER or OR?
RS.
I'm sorry?
I'm pretty sure it's ERS. I
Okay,
live in Kentucky, so don't take my grammar as
It's
gospel,
ER.
but
okay. You remind me of this YouTuber I listened to who's like, don't trust me, I grew up in a cult. Okay. Does that look correct?
It is, and there should actually be one more spot. Yeah, under the letters are technically off here. It should be A, B, C.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So right.
Under number 3, yeah, it should be dues payers.
We lost.
But they wouldn't be. Oh, okay, got you. Ms. Arrowwood,
Yes,
you said you were lost? So Mr. Molman.
oh, I see it. He's moving to insert what number 2 is.
Right, he's
Okay.
moving to strike dues paying members and instead have quote dues payers, and then this should be D. Let's see if we can fix that.
Actually,
Shouldn't that be a
wait,
capital?
I think that one is supposed. That should be a capital, yes, capital P. And then, but I'm trying to see what the numbering is. Something's off here. It's 2 is signatory members. Is it supposed to be 2 or is it supposed to be 1? Scroll back up to the
yeah,
original.
Yep, there we go. So this, you know how these numbering.
1, 2,
whoops.
3. Yes, I know.
Okay. Let's do.
Right click. Yeah, I was gonna say you can right click on that number 2 and tell it to restart. Look at 1.
Google does not like doing that. So what goes on, and this one is 2.
That's number 1. That one's number 2. Mm-hmm.
And under 2 is A, B, C, and then 3. So this is 3. And this is A, B, C. Okay.
It won't
Whatever.
cooperate.
We got it. Yeah.
Great. So if you go back down to Mr. Bracco's there, because we're on mine right now.
Yep. And this should be
It should
A.
be,
It keeps going up every time I hit that.
that's, so if you click the C and then double click it, so it's just. C,
I
then
was
it'll
doing
change
that.
it. Yeah, okay.
It wasn't working.
Mm.
Every
As
time
long
I
as
hit
we
it.
know what it's supposed to be.
Yep. This should be a period. If everyone knows where we're at, if we could not worry about these sorts of things, that would be great.
Right.
Okay, so you are moving to strike dues payers from number 2, dues paying, excuse me, members, and insert dues payers. And then from number 3, strike the word paying and make it payors to be conforming to the change you had made. Do you wish to speak to your amendment?
Yes, Ms. Harless, your argument about member being defined a certain way, I believe has great merit. And so this is to reflect that, to remove the use of the word member, other than those who have not signed, anyone who has not signed the pledge. Mr. Bracco's amendment makes it so that it's clear that the LNC cannot use that term. And this resolves the conflict that existed, that would have otherwise existed in the bylaws if we had, if it were to pass that dues paying members was to be used. So this does make it that the term member is not used anywhere. A dues payer is being called out specifically in double quotes with capital letters as a proper noun, in order to make it very clear that this is a thing. And likewise, previous members became capitalized as well, so it is a proper noun, it is a thing. And that is, in my mind, the right thing to do.
Pay dues.
Eric, member, but to say this is
Payers.
classification.
Somebody has a hot mic.
But
I believe that's Ms. Arrowwood. Okay, continue, Mr. Molman.
So my point is that I do want to resolve the issue of the use of membership or the term member in any way, shape, or form other than someone signed the pledge. I believe that. And part of the overall amendment is to reorganize things so that they're place. So, section 1 now becomes, this is you sign the pledge. Section 2 is you pay us money, and section 3 is what happens when those two interact. So that is the reason and rationale behind all this, and this solves the. Sorry, I'm tired, so I'm in Daytona. I was at a race all day. I'm rambling.
Okay, thank you. I have Mr. Seebeck and myself. I can't raise my hand. My computer froze for a little bit. And then I have Mr. Martin. Mr. Seebeck?
Yeah, I got two things. One is a statement on the amendment, and the other one's a technical question, but I'll do the statement on the amendment first. This actually creates a problem. If you look at the wording of what would be number 2 here, and bypass item A, you wind up with dues payers shall be those persons who are life members. Is not a life member supposed to be a signatory member as well? The way this is worded, that would mean that a life member never has signed the pledge. I don't think that's what's intended here. The technical question is there a way we can get, for not the moment, but when we get to going back and forth, that we can get both this amendment and the substitute on the screen at the same time, just to make it easier to compare? I know it's a little tight, but It would
I
help.
I'm trying to keep as, largest text as possible, but no, right now I cannot, wait, here we go.
I think you have
No,
page-
it,
I think you have a page wrap there. If you had some blank lines above the Bracco-Millman amendment title, it might get everything on one page. That's a guess. So if we can't, we can't, but it's just a thought. It's the joys of white space and Google Docs.
yeah, here we go.
Oh, there we go. That helps. We just take those out later. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I had myself in line, because I couldn't raise my hand, and my computer obviously has since unfrozen. I could tell you, we can't do any further amendments because there's already one level amendment. The substitute is considered that until we dispose of this thing, this amendment, excuse me. I could tell you, I'm urging defeat of this. If we have to specify in here a status of this person, this hypothetical person that does this thing, they're called donors. They're not dues payers. Dues payers in parliamentary societies implies membership. It is super confusing. And Mr. Seebeck pointed out how each move we're making with this section, we're just creating more problems. It's not necessary. If we want to clarify that members are those that sign the pledge, it takes one word. It does not take all of this. This is going to be so confusing to people on the floor as well, I believe. So I'm urging A, to vote this amendment down, and I will be moving to insert donors in case to perfect the Molman amendment, but ultimately to vote for the substitute. Mr. Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Secretary. So this entire section falls under Article 4, membership. And so one of the potential confusing things about this is that since it all falls under the title of membership, dues payers could still be construed as referring to somehow to some kind of category of membership, in addition to the fact that dues are generally an attribute of a member. So that's all I have.
Mr. Bracco?
Is it in order to amend the substitute at this time?
It will be once we're done perfecting the Mr. Molman's main motion.
Okay,
We're
pass.
doing them separately. So I'll have you on deck to do that. Mr. Molman?
I just wanted to note that the use of the term donor has legal implications. Technically speaking, when someone goes to LP store, they're not buying anything, they're donating, because buying would infer selling, which would infer taxes, which would infer income, which would infer income taxes. So we don't sell anything other than event packages. We do sell. I just point that out, that donor has its own legal disaster behind it. It's just what it is. But I never.
Thank you, Mr. Molman. I thank Mr. Martin for pointing out, which totally slipped my attention, that this is all under Article 4 membership. I tend to think that the party chair would be in order to even rule this whole thing of adding a category that's not members under a section called members out of order. I'm starting to suspect that without an amendment to the title that I would be within my rights to do so, but I'm not at this point. I hadn't even, that had slipped my mind. So thank you, Mr. Martin. I think we're making mincemeat of this section. And there's an easy way to fix the raised concern of making sure that members are those who sign the pledge without doing all of this. And we already have two good terms, the sustaining members and members. If we have to add the word signatory member, I wouldn't cry over that. rather than just the generic member, by adding all this whole thing about donors and what we're doing here, it is, it's one of those situations I can't, can't think of, like, so many expressions today are considered offensive. So I hesitate to even say it, but whatever we're doing, each step we make, we're like tightening a noose around our neck more. It's like, it's a trap. It's a trap, Star Wars. So I think we need to be really cautious here that maybe at this point, the best thing to do is vote everything down and revisit it later, because I think we're getting ensnared. Is there anyone who would like to speak further? Mr. Molman.
Madam Chair, would it be in order at this time to table the whole dang thing? Or to lay upon a table, or whatever the right parliamentary term for that is, because I know it's not right to say table, but you know what I mean.
Postpone?
Well, here's what I suggest, Mr. Molman. Postponing means we're going to go back to this language right exactly as it is, and I don't think that's solving our problem. If we end up voting, there's two scenarios here. We pass the language in the substitute, which means we can come back later and amend Article 4 further. Nothing is stopping us from amending it further later. It's not like we touch a section and we can't touch it further. If someone, and that would require choosing the substitute over the main motion. As long as someone's not on the losing side of that vote, they can move to reconsider any of your language later. So I would urge people, no matter what it is that they want to do, if they want to bring back up language, even if they're intending on voting down the substitute and wish to bring it back later, just don't be on the losing side of any of these votes, and you have reconsideration rights. Okay, we are on the amendment at this point, which is to strike dues paying members and make it dues payers. Ms. Arrowwood.
All right. I'm going to vote yes. Rocco,
Express abstention.
Nicholas Sazelski,
No.
Rob Latham,
No.
Frank Martin,
Yes.
Ken Molman,
I'm going to vote yes on that.
Dr. Moulton,
Pardon me, are we voting on the Harlow substitute now? Is that correct?
Dr. Moulton, we are perfecting the Molman main motion where he is striking dues paying members.
We're voting on his amendments. Oh, okay.
Yes.
I abstain.
okay. Tom Rowlett,
Yes.
Mike Seebeck,
No,
all right. Karen Ann Harlos,
Am I the last one?
yes, ma'am.
And right now it is passing. Correct?
Uh,
And if
well-
I vote no, it will fail.
Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I am debating changing my vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, whose voice was that?
I'm Rob Latham,
Oh, okay, you voted no, sir.
right?
Okay,
I think I'm gonna end up voting for the Harlow substitute, so this is all kind of gonna get mooted anyway, but I find myself at least saying if we're stuck with this language for some reason, at least it's a slight improvement. So I see myself voting yes.
Okay, hold on. Yes, we have one.
So then my vote won't make a difference. I won't vote.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes. 1, 2 no.
I have,
Okay, we have 5 yes, 2 no, and 3 abstentions.
okay, thank you, Ms. Arrowood. So that is now there. Is there any further amendment on Mr. Molman's main motion? Mr. Seebeck,
Yes, move item B for our life members, et cetera, under number 2 there, down to number 3. With a, oh shoot, how to word this? The intent here is to get life members out of non-signatory dues payers and into dues payers and signatory members, but they're a part of a sustaining member, a type of sustaining member, but not the only type of sustaining member.
I would think if you want a suggestion, Mr. Seebeck, is to
I'm
move it
lawyers.
from 2B and make it 3A.
Okay, let's do that then.
What did I? This is starting to get super confusing, but
We need a wordsmith that's just a hair.
whoops.
We need to put in. No, that doesn't do it either.
If I may,
Mr. Molman?
if you could zoom that out just a hair so I can to the entirety.
You're really faint.
There we go. Oh, sorry. Being quiet is not something that I am normally accused of. I'm just going to say that. What I was going to suggest is that achieving the same thing, National Committee may offer life memberships instead of moving that section, just because it is about money in the end, right? And that's what section 2 is supposed to be about, money. Just say they may offer life memberships to signatory members and must honor all future blah 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 blah. But that's jacked up. Never mind. It's all jacked up. The current thing's jacked up too. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Seebeck, you're still on your amendment.
Yeah, I'm still staring at it, trying to figure out how to make this work for what the intention is. Yeah, I know what I'm trying to get to here. It's what I raised earlier. I'm not quite sure how in the wording we have how to quite accomplish that. I agree that we should put it under sustaining members, but a life member is a type of, but not exclusively a sustaining member. In other words, there's other sustaining members that aren't life members. How to capture that is the question. And I apologize to the committee for doing this on the fly. I'm not quite sure how to handle this here.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Braca?
May I just?
Oh, Mr. Molman?
Yeah, I apologize, and this is out of order, but Mr. Seebeck and the committee, I'd respectfully ask that we, if anything, if we're going to do anything, let's adopt Ms. Harlow's substitute or adopt nothing. The quick fix that I hoped for is obviously flawed, and I think we can beat our heads against this, but we're not going to be able to fix this.
Well,
We're
let
gonna
me
spend an
ask
hour trying to amend it.
let me ask the committee. I'm hearing Mr. Molman is saying he wishes to withdraw his main motion. And then my substitute would just be treated as a main motion. Is there any objection to Mr. Molman withdrawing his main motion as amended?
I think I need to withdraw my motion first, which I would do so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Seebeck. Okay, hearing no objection, this will all be withdrawn. Nothing is preventing people from revisiting this later if there's some tweaks we wish to make to it. I do not wish to withdraw my substitute, which now becomes the main motion, because I do think there was a problem identified. If Mr. Bracco would indulge me for one moment. I know he wishes to amend this further. If your amendment is going to be something similar to what you were trying to do with Mr. Molman's, and it's not in section 1 here, 4.1, it's always something you can do in the future. You won't be foreclosed from amending this further. I think the committee's kind of tired of this section and is ready to do something and move on. So I am just suggesting that perhaps what you're trying to do might be better for the future, but I can certainly, you are entitled to amend the substitute, which does include all of Article 4 is open for amendment. So Mr. Bracco.
I don't have my hand raised anymore.
Okay. All right, so we are on the substitute. The substitute is simply to add the word exclusively before those persons. I've spoken sufficiently to it. Well, first I'm going to ask, is there any objection to adopting this, which now the main motion of adding the word exclusively before those persons? Dr. Moulton.
I don't have an objection, but I just wanted to briefly comment that I understand what problem Mr. Molman was trying to solve. And I think this may solve a problem, but it doesn't solve all of the problems he identified. So I don't think your proposal is necessarily mutually exclusive with what Ken is trying to do. And I would support him coming back with something later that addresses that problem a different way. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Moulton. So is there any, and passing this will not prevent that, just FYI, that was more of a point of information for the committee. Is there any objection to passing what is now my main motion to add the word exclusively to Article 4, Section 1? Okay, yay, hearing none, that passes without objection. We will move to the next section, which, next agenda item, pardon me, which is a proposal from Mr. Bracco. He withdrew, if you're wondering why we skipped from C to E, he withdrew his prior proposal D. And we are pulling this up. Mr. Bracco, would you like to speak to this amendment?
Sure. So I think that section it should be read. A platform plan.
Yes.
All that stuff. So we add bylaws with the 2/3. We strike bylaws with the 2/3. We add platform with the 2/3. We strike bylaws, or sorry, we strike platform with majority. It's the one thing that's out of place. It's the one thing that is different from all the other thresholds, I guess, except for like the statement of principles and all that stuff. But everything else, with that one exception, is a 2/3 vote, except for this. This is the only one that's lower. I think this is consistency. So I think that we should make this more consistent.
Okay, I have Mr. Rowlett.
Thank you. In my opinion, there's a reason that this is a majority as opposed to 2/3. That wasn't an accident. It's not. It's inconsistent for a reason. It should be easier to get rid of a platform plank than it is to put a new platform plank in, or to amend a platform plank. Actually, there's more than one reason. One reason is that prior to 2006, our platform was like 63 pages or something like that, and knocking those out occasionally keeps the document better. But that's just the practical reason. The more philosophical reason is that it should be harder to stand for something than it should be to stay silent on it. And so I know where you're going with this, and I appreciate it, but I oppose this proposal.
Mr. Seebeck.
I too oppose this because I want to point something out here. This would also apply to any proposed deletions by token, unless we're going to scrap that system. And there will be people who will look at this and say, oh, last convention, we used the lower majority to get rid of the abortion plank. Now they want to lock the door behind them by raising the threshold. And that's going to cause a lot of debate and a lot of controversy, and may cause us to not pass on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Seebeck. I had myself after Mr. Seebeck. First of all, yeah, I don't think it was an accident to make it 50%, but I do think it was a mistake. Contrary to Mr. Seebeck, this actually would help. It isn't pulling up the ladder after anyone. The fact that that plank was able to be deleted with a majority vote, it would not have passed with a 2/3 vote, angered many people in this party that they want some kind of stability. I think having majority to delete, this gets into a little bit tactically. I know there's lots of feelings about what happened last convention. I'm going to tell you my personal view. It's just my personal view. We often have factions within the party. 2006 was brought up, where one faction gets an upper hand over others, but we're all libertarians. But one thing I think that showed is that outsiders who are not libertarians, we are very easy to take over. And to have people who may not be libertarians be able to come in with just a majority vote and gut our platform is an unsustainable, horrifying option. Yes, we would still have the statement of principles in there, but there are planks, practically speaking, and I am saying this against my own quote unquote faction. There's move to want to get rid of the immigration plank, say. And if we want to see a war in this party, let's delete that by a majority vote and see how that goes. That is not going to be pretty. This will provide more organizational peace and stability. If something passed by 2/3, less than that should not be able to exit. This is our ideology here. It should be a consistent thing. You shouldn't be able to delete something with less than it took to pass it. There needs to be some continuity in this organization. Again, contra my quote unquote faction, I was against the deletion of the abortion plank, and I think it was a mistake to be able to delete it with just a majority vote. And I think this is much healthier for our organization. And even if you're not in favor of this, this has been asked for by enough people that it deserves to be voted on by the delegates. So I would say voting for it doesn't necessarily mean you support this amendment. It means that you support letting the delegates decide if they support this amendment, because we all know that proposals that don't come through a committee right now don't get heard because you have to move to suspend the rules. It gets crazy. this has been asked for enough that I think this committee should put it before the delegates and not act like a gatekeeper. Let the delegates decide. I had next Mr. Molman and Mr. Latham.
I think I agree with the first two and disagree with you, Ms. Harlos. I think it's mostly a philosophical thing for me anyway. It takes 2/3 to put something into our platform. That means that 2/3 one time, at some point in time, said this is a good idea to have in our platform. Now, keeping in mind that our platform speaks for it at the national level, speaks for the whole party, every bit of the party across the country. Being that a plank is deleted from national does not preclude a state party from passing the same plank. A plank not existing at a state level does not preclude a county party from passing a plank. But when we have it at the top level, it then puts you in a weird position where you have to say, yeah, national says this, but ... So our national platform should be something that a huge majority of people agree to. That's why it takes 2/3 to put it in. But long term, things change over time. Not the philosophy, but the application of our philosophy changes over time. Issues that are relevant now will not necessarily be relevant in 10 or 20 years. But if it requires 2/3 to put something into the platform, but 2/3 of the people that come to convention after convention after convention, no longer agree with that plank, and it would never pass today, why are we stuck with the platform of the past when it would never pass today? And if anything, I know this sounds extreme, but if anything, it should be the inverse, should be the threshold to delete anything. If it wouldn't pass today, why is it still there? It should only be the things that 2/3 of our members, the organization speaking on behalf of every libertarian throughout the entire country, it should only be those things that 2/3 or more of our members agree to at the last convention. And, you know, that's just kind of my thought on it is our platform at a national level should not be in depth. It should not be nuanced, micro issue, everything. It should be the broader platform. Its statement of principles always, right? Which is why we super protect that. But it should always be contemporary. It should always be broad enough that it speaks for at least 2/3 of all libertarians all the time. And so if anything, I would have went the other way with it and made it so 1/3 could delete. And I know that has no chance to get passed, but just philosophically, I just believe that our platform should always be focused on speaking for the overwhelming majority of all libertarians today, not what 2/3 10 years ago said. So that's why I oppose this amendment.
Mr. Latham?
Just first an observation, so that blue language, I think only the deletions of existing planks would be the new language, right? And new planks or amendments to existing planks is actually existing language.
No, it's reworded because it did say a platform plank. And now it says new planks, deletions of existing planks or amendments to existing planks require a 2/3 vote.
Okay, because I'm looking at the existing bylaws. A platform plank may be deleted by a majority vote. That's proposed to be stricken. And then the existing language is new planks or amendments to existing planks require a 2/3 vote. So that's just
on the screen. It says new planks, deletions of existing planks, or amendments to existing planks.
right. And so just on that underlined blue language, if I'm looking at the existing bylaws, I mean, that new planks or amendments to existing planks require a 2/3 vote is already there.
Oh,
See what I'm-
okay. let me
So
see here.
deletions of existing planks is
Yes,
the only new
yes.
stuff.
Yep, you are correct. That was my error. Thank you. You confused me there.
Well, it's
Let me-
confusing stuff.
Yep, let me switch that. Yep. This should be clearer once for some reason, it doesn't want to change the color for me. There we go. Unbold. Come on, you unbold. There.
Although, do we underline that as well? Because it's
Yeah.
new.
Okay, Mr. Latham, did you have further?
So, yeah, so just in considering this proposal, I find myself feeling that a majority is too low of a threshold, but 2/3 is too high of a threshold. So my Goldilocks number is 4/7, which would be 57%. I think I could be comfortable with 3/5, so 60%. But my motion is essentially to amend this proposal to strike basically the deletion language.
You can't, I don't think you can do what you want to do that way, but you can do a substitute.
Okay, so do you want me to write up a substitute or try to do it orally?
We'll try to do it orally and
Okay.
I'll try to get what you get. So this is what it currently is.
Okay.
But let me take this out so that it's the current language.
And just a platform plank may be deleted by a 4/7 vote. So we're just replacing the word majority with 4/7.
Okay, let me just format this so everyone can see. So this then unbold that. Format text. And vote stays in. Okay, does that look correct?
That looks correct to me. And I think I've spoken enough to it. I hope that my intention there is clear.
Okay, we are now on the main motion. We're gonna leave that up for any further amendment. If people just wish to speak and not amend, you could speak to either of them. But the one that's open for amendment right now is the main motion, but just let me know if you have amendments to the substitute so I can put you in line for that. Mr. Latham, I believe is done. Let me lower his, oh yeah, he lowered his hand. So I just want to address some points. It seems that everyone arguing on how, I don't mean arguing in the pejorative way, debating on how the platform should speak for everyone. I think they're making the argument for why it should be deleted by a 2/3 vote. Because what we say and what we don't say, they're equal. And a mere majority shouldn't, after people already, this is our platform, this is what they, have a right to come to expect, to have something that doesn't at least have a 2/3 vote to delete, shouldn't be deleted. All of the arguments that were made about overwhelming support of the party actually support this amendment. And that's, I don't want to repeat points, Mr. Logan.
Okay, yes. given the choices, I would go for the amendment, but
The substitute, you mean, Mr. Logan?
yeah, I'll say,
Okay,
sorry.
thank you.
The sub, between the two, I would go for the substitute, but I would, I'm really arguing against either of them, right? So I'm more in agreement with Mr. Molman about how, and it's, I want to take a different tack and say it's bigger than this, like society as a whole, our government, the way our life works, our government. Wouldn't it be better if it was more decentralized? If the higher and higher in society, the higher and higher in our government we got, there was a higher and higher threshold to have a law, right? And if there is such a high threshold, then, and we don't want to live with these laws, right? These old laws that you know, some of the most big desired improvements I have for our Constitution, our society, are to make laws expire regularly and to make it harder to put them into place, right? The lack of laws, which are supposedly an outlet for the state to, you know, institute force against us. The lack of laws is freedom, is liberty, right? So the idea that we want to encourage a society as a whole that makes it harder to put into place restrictions. And that's what these are, right? The bylaws, these our platform, they're restrictions on how each individual libertarian chooses to express themselves in some way. And without them, without a platform at all, you know, people are still free to have their own opinions. So just taking it from the tact of the bigger picture of like, this is the government I would like to put in place. And so I certainly want it within our party. I'm more in Mr. Molman's idea that, you know, there should be a high threshold to put in something that affects a lot of people, right? A federal law or it's nationwide platform, right? But there should almost be an opposite to take it out, right? The US Constitution requires a 2/3 approval to declare war. Shouldn't it also say that if we were already at war, we would only need a 1/3 approval to stop it? But it doesn't do that. Not that we've ever, you know, in decades now haven't really declared war. We just fight them. So that's a separate issue. The secretary during her debate said something that what we say is just as equal as what we don't say. I don't think that's true, right? I think, again, we're talking about positive action, I think, is more important. It is more significant. What we are saying means more, right? The 10th Amendment, just because we didn't say something, or maybe not the 10th Amendment, but, you know, just that concept that just because we don't mention something, I think it's in our platform or somewhere where it says just because we haven't talked about something doesn't mean we don't have an opinion or something. And I think that's important, right? That we should be allowed to not have an opinion or not state our opinion. And so that's why I would vote against these kind of concepts and like the idea that, yeah, it's easier to get rid of something than it is to create it. One of the problems we have in law is that every new law nowadays creates restrictions and alleviates them, right? Because laws are so complicated. So that's a separate question as well. And it is unfortunate that sometimes we're deleting an entire platform amendment and parts of it might be good and bad, but yeah, I think that's a better way to go about it. So, thanks.
Just a point no, this is just in general to the committee. It's not specific, though. something you said prompted it. Just for the clarity of the record and people watching the meeting, in this meeting, we're all equal committee members. I'm not LNC secretary here. I know I have it in my name and I should remove that and just put Karen Ann Harlows, but it gets confusing for the record. The committee secretary is Ms. Arrowwood. So just for clarity of record, to refer to me either as the committee chair or Ms. Harlows would make it clearer. My LNC role isn't relevant in the committee. Mr. Bracco.
So I think that the comparison to laws is really misplaced. And there's evidence for that. Prior to the 2022 convention, Mr. Molman's own state platform included a different and inconsistent definition of an abortion plank versus the national platform. Just because something's in the national platform does not mean that a state cannot say the opposite. I mean, it's happened. I'm sure it's happening now. So I think that having, I'll be honest, the whole 1/3 thing seems a little crazy to me. Of like, as laws, sure, but that's because I'm biased and I don't want any. But in a voluntary organization that you join because of what it stands for, you want some assurances as to what it's going to continue to stand for. And if you make it easier to delete stuff, you have marginally less assurances. So I think that, I mean, to apply this logic would mean that we have a 1/3 to delete language from the bylaws. That seems crazy. I don't see how it's all that different here.
Thank you, Mr. Bracco. I was going to make the points about a private organization. I won't do that to repeat points. When you can delete by a majority, it does not encourage people who have a mere majority to negotiate with the rest of the convention. To say, and I probably was sloppy when I just said in general, what we don't say is important as what we say. Let me be more precise. Saying something at one time and then stopping saying it is just as important as what we are actively saying. You don't believe me? Go and talk to people about how they feel about the deletion of the bigotry language. They certainly feel by us deleting it, we were saying something. Now, I don't agree with their conclusions, but to say this isn't a sentiment in the party right now that's causing a lot of strife. I originally wrote this, Mr. Bracco took it on, and I could tell you my motivation is A, a lot of members have asked for it, and B, I think this will bring stability and peace to the party at a time we really, really need it. Because if some of the types of deletions that happened last time happen again, we are going to be very, very wounded. Our ideological statements are important. And yes, members do need to have some assurance. People felt betrayed that something that got put in by 2/3 that was very dear to them, that being the abortion plank, was able to be deleted by a majority. And I understand why they feel that way. For those of us who like the token system, keeping it at a majority vote when under 20% of the delegates can force a vote, and I like that power being in the hands of the delegates so that everything's not coming through a committee, keeping this in majority is dooming the token system, which I think is a good thing for us to have. But there was organization last convention that was kind of half-hearted to delete to get rid of the token system, because I didn't think they actually thought anyone would ever succeed in deleting the abortion plank. I didn't think so. It's been tried many times, but I think there'll be a super organized movement to delete the token system. A lot of people feel burned by that, and whether this passes or not, I don't mean out of the committee. Let's say we passed it out of the committee. I do think this is an important enough issue to let the delegates decide. And if we passed one of these two proposals, there would be a right to a minority report on this committee. And a minority report doesn't necessarily mean an alternate proposal. It means that you can get up and argue from your position on the committee, whoever the spokesperson for the minority position is, from the podium to vote it down. And you'd have that position where at least the delegates get to hear both sides and let the delegates decide this. It's important enough and enough of a controversy in the party right now to have it on the floor. Mr. Molman, then Mr. Martin. Actually, Mr. Martin hasn't spoken yet. So Mr. Martin, then Mr. Molman.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say I'll be voting in favor of this because I do think that the delegates need to be able to hash this out and make a decision. And if we deny them that opportunity, well, they may not like us. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Molman.
I was just going to state that I also support deleting platform or bylaws by 1/3 as well. Anything, just generally speaking, if it wouldn't pass today, then why is it still there? That's my general position generally.
Hey, are there any amendments to either the main motion or the substitute motion? Okay, so where we are at procedurally now is we are going to vote on the question, shall the substitute motion become the main motion? A yes vote would make the substitute motion the main motion to which we would then vote on. A no vote would leave the main motion as what was originally proposed by Mr. Bracco, to which we would then vote on, though there would be additional opportunity for debate. But before we go to this vote, I'm giving a last call for amendments, because at least at this point, you know, later on, if there's a different subject matter and there has been something proposed regarding the preamble, we can deal with that. But right now, after we pass one or other as the main motion, it can't be amended further. So just if you have an amendment, do it now. Ms. Arrowood.
I thought there was an amendment on the floor to strike majority and insert 4/7 or
There-
4/7.
There is, it's the substitute motion. It's on the screen. So
Okay.
I'll label this. This is substitute by Mr. Latham, which is right here. And then this is Bracco main motion. So the question right now before us is, shall the Latham substitute become the main motion? Or will Mr. Bracco's motion remain the main motion? Ms. Arrowood, if you could do a roll call vote.
All right. Arrowood, I vote yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Molman.
Madam Chair.
Wait,
I'm
one moment,
sorry,
Ms.
Point
Arrowood.
of information.
Yes,
Point of information. A yes vote makes the Latham amendment the main
the
motion.
Latham substitute will become the main motion by yes vote.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
so
you. That's what I wanted to verify. What yes or no? Thank you.
Okay.
thank you. Continue, Ms. Arrowood.
All right. Arrowood, I vote yes. Bracco,
No.
Sazelsky,
No.
Latham,
Yes.
Martin,
No.
Molman,
I will vote yes.
Dr. Moulton,
Yes.
Tom Rowlett,
Nope.
Mike Seebeck,
Nope.
all right. Karen Ann Harlos,
1, 2, 3, 4. Is it tied presently?
2, 3, 4. Yes. No, the noes have it.
So if, by,
It's-
what's the count?
4, 5,
So if,
and you haven't voted.
so if I vote no, the substitute fails to become the main motion.
Yes,
So I will vote no.
correct.
I will vote no. So the Bracco motion remains the main motion. Mr. Seebeck.
Well, I've been listening to this and I originally was kind of opposed to the main motion. I stated tactical and reaction reasons why. But with further discussion, I've actually kind of flipped and I think it's a better way to be more consistent across the board because technically an amendment to a plank can be deleting the whole plank. The wording that specifically says that a deletion by majority was put in there to set that apart from a regular amendment. This just makes it consistent. And while we do delineate between a deletion and another type of amendment, making them all 2/3 makes sense. So I'm flipping my vote to yes.
Thank you, Mr. Seebeck. Ms. Arrowood.
I'm sorry, Mr. Seebeck is changing his vote from no to yes.
No, he's speaking, he was speaking in favor of the main motion.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right, we're now on the main. Okay. Alright.
And not that he was doing this because he was speaking on the main motion, but just for everyone's clarification. If you're intending on changing your vote, you need to do it before I do. So hopefully we'll have less of that. I know there's been some confusion, but that isn't, you know, Mr. Seebeck was in line for debate. Ms. Arrowood, your hand is still raised?
Oh, I just forgot to take it down.
Okay.
All right.
Is there any further debate on the main motion? Ms. Arrowood, if you could take a roll call vote on the main motion.
All right, we're on the main motion. I vote yes. Rocco,
Yes.
Sazelsky,
Oh, this one's hard for me. Yes.
okay. Mr. Latham,
Yes.
right? Frank Martin,
Yes.
Ken Molman,
No.
Dr. Moulton,
Did we
Dr.
lose?
Moulton,
Dr. Moulton, you're muted if you're speaking. Please come back to him.
all right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I vote no.
Okay. Tom Rowlett,
No.
Mike Seebeck,
Yes.
Karen Ann Harlos.
Express abstention.
All right, 1, 2. 6 yes. 3 noes. 6 yes, 3 noes, 1 abstain.
Okay, that passes. I'm going to ask if the committee has any objection. We have a proposal and a substitute on candidate elimination. I would prefer not to divide this debate up between 2 meetings, and we are coming up on our end time. And the item after that was an informal discussion of disallowing write-ins. And rather than break up debate, if there's no objection from the committee, I would like to start fresh next meeting with perhaps finishing an informal discussion and then, you know, not cleaving into the argument on this next proposal so that we put this proposal off to next meeting. Is there any objection to doing that and just moving into the informal discussion of disallowing write-ins? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Seeback, as head teller, last convention, would you like to start off this discussion?
Sure. Okay, a little background here. I was head teller for the last two conventions, and at Reno, we ran into a valid under the current procedures, but major problem at the same time issue with a couple of states who chose, for whatever reasons, to flood their ballots for certain positions in the elections with write-in candidates. Now, at the Reno Convention, there were petitions circulated which required to get a modicum of support, and I don't remember exactly what the number was, but those people were the ones whose names automatically appeared on the at least the first ballot for those votes. Everybody else was considered a write-in. What wound up happening, and this was bogging down the tellers and tallying and verifying, well, okay, first of all, it bogged down the state affiliates, the state delegations in tallying their votes, which slowed everything to a screeching halt. It then slowed our tellers down because we had to take their tallies and enter them into the spreadsheet for each individual write-in. We eventually wound up having to do a separate sheet for all the excessive write-ins versus the primary candidates, and it caused, again, major slowdowns within the entire convention. I believe Ms. Harlos has access to the actual sheets themselves. They're on the shared drive from when that happened. We discussed this as a tellers group, and as a one, we were all very pissed about this because this was basically people throwing excessive, unnecessary work upon the tellers that wasn't needed, had no impact on the final results of the elections, all to have a virtual temper tantrum over how votes were going. At least that's how we viewed it. The petitions for the modicum of support were designed, to my understanding, to help remove this type of excessive nonsense. The drawback on this is if we were to eliminate write-in votes, it could be construed as violating member rights. So the concern is, how can we resolve the issue of preserving the member rights, but also not bringing the convention to a screeching halt, delaying everything to the point where we run out of time, we run out of AV equipment and have to revert to megaphones and a lot of yelling in order to continue with business. That's what I got for the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Seeback. Mr. Molman and then Dr. Moulton.
Yeah, so as the one who was standing up front during the debacle, I was not very happy with it either, which if you heard my comments, if you're slower than California, there's a problem. It was obviously intentional, and some folks after the events made it clear that it was intentional. It was intentionally trying to bog down the process, to slow things down, to run out the clock. The job of a convention is not to intentionally cause, a minority should not be able to stop an entire convention from getting business done. Roberts is a system that is supposed to balance rights, the rights of the majority versus the rights of the minority. Unfortunately, because we have approval voting and we have unlimited write-ins, there is the potential, and we just saw the actual real abuse of the system that is not necessarily accounted for in a typical Roberts scenario. And so I believe in the ability to write people in. However, the time to write someone in is during the nomination process. If there is a petition of sorts to put someone in, then you know, that is the first round of elimination. And if at a minimum, we have to cap the number of people that people can write in. I believe Mr. Seebeck, I had heard rumors that there were individual ballots with 20 or 30 write-ins each.
Wow.
And that's ridiculous because
I
only
think
5
we had
people are
one
going
with
to be elected.
hundreds.
Right.
Did.
And
One tally sheet had over 100.
Well, and that's the thing. You're only electing 5 people at most at one time, right? The at-large is the biggest race we have where there's a field and only, you know, 5 get elected at the same time. Everything
7,
else is
Judd
silliness.
It
Okay,
happened during
yes,
Judd
I'm sorry.
for 7.
You are correct. That is correct. 7 for Judicial Committee. So my point is if we're going to continue to allow write-ins, the number of write-ins someone should be able to make should be capped at the number of people to be freaking elected at a minimum. Like that's a reasonable, sane limit to put on write-ins if you're going to have them. If you're not going to have them, then, you know, you have to have a mechanism to let people at least get through the first cut. So if it's going to be the petition or the nominating paperwork, I think that's reasonable. I think that all makes sense. And by the way, my understanding, according to some folks that I talked to that have been around since the 80s, the reason that the nominating process exists is due to abuse by candidates. The story I was told was that a particular candidate used their time on stage to try to further their music career on C-SPAN, which I'm sure worked so well. But that was apparently the purpose was they just went up and played music. We have seen abuse in more contemporary times where someone decided to make a mockery of the chair's race in 2016. There has to be a mechanism, and that was with the nominating process. So there has to be limits. We for the good of the body, for the good of the organization. What that looks like, I don't know, but I definitely think at a bare minimum, saying you can't write in more people than there are to be elected is a really good start. And from there, I'm open to other ideas.
Okay, Dr. Moulton, and I'm just saying we're coming up on our ending time. I'd hope, Mr. Seebeck, if you could start off at our next meeting. I was going to cut it off at Mr. Latham unless we extend time. But we're going to continue this discussion next time. And the purpose of this discussion is so people can think of proposals. Dr. Moulton.
Yeah, I'll try to be very brief here. I agree that there should be some limits. However, I do not support the idea of cutting off write-ins entirely for 2 reasons. First of all, I think after all of the ballot access troubles we as a party have had over the years, we see that write-ins are our release valve for that. And I think it really protects member rights to be able to have their voice heard by writing someone in. Secondly, I don't think that all write-in votes, even for people who don't win, are frivolous. The first national convention I attended, I was a delegate from Pennsylvania, and my friend Richard Schwartz wrote in for president on his first ballot, Howard Stern, which may seem ridiculous. It seemed ridiculous to me at the time, but Richard said, hold on, wait for it. You'll see why I'm doing this. And then our state chair, David John, he read the list of all our votes from Pennsylvania, including Howard Stern. Howard Stern played back that clip all day long about him getting nominated for president at the national convention. It got us a bunch of media attention, and all for something that took my friend Richard 1 minute to do. I would be open to limiting write-in votes to the first ballot only. I would be open to limited write-in votes, not only to just the number of positions open, I'd be open limit to one per person per office, so just one per at large. I would be open to those sorts of reforms to limit the number of write-ins, but I would not be open to eliminating write-ins entirely. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moulton. All of the support reforms that have been said, I'd certainly support, but I could tell you that I personally am in support of eliminating write-ins. That was the purpose of the nominating petitions, to not, we shouldn't have the nominating positions if we're just going to allow in write-ins. And I think the hope of many people in the party, and I think probably most people in this committee, is to move to electronic voting. In order to have electronic voting, we have to have a known ballot. You can't have write-ins. There has to be a set ballot. Otherwise, you're back to hand tabulation, us not getting to our work. I can tell you that when Ken Molman was chairing the convention, there were some write-ins that he made the decorum call that we weren't going to display, because people were using write-ins to insult people. They would say somebody's name with parentheticals in the middle, you know, calling them a Nazi, calling them whatever name you could possibly think. So they were using it to, it was so abused that I can't, words can't express how badly it was used.
It was more than just Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck.
Yeah, it was bad. There was just some real defamation going on in there. But I wanted to read for everyone's reference the reason why our bylaws have to deal with it, rather than, you know, just an instruction of the chair or whatever you might think, because we do ballot voting. Roberts 45:18 says members are able to write in or fill in a vote for any eligible person or choice and are not confined to voting for or against candidates that appear on the ballot. So in order to not have write-ins, our bylaws have to specifically say that, or to limit write-ins, our bylaws have to specifically say that. We need to get business done. Anyone, our candidate, I don't think the thing about ballot access, it transfers over, because you only need 20 signatures. If you can't get 20 signatures, it's not onerous. It isn't. It's showing a minimum of support. I can tell you in my town council race, I had a petition requirement, 25 signatures. It wasn't just to avoid people furthering their music career, by the way. One of the reasons for the petition requirement is people who got a wild hair at convention that gave no thought to serving on the LNC, just thought it would be a great lark to hear their name get nominated, and there would be like 80 nominations for at large. That's why the petitions were put into place. But to allow it to just then be write-in totally defeats that. We need to, you know, the old-fashioned saying, poop or get off the pot. Right now, we've got one cheek on the pot and one cheek off the pot. And I think we need to decide. And we need to have more productive conventions. I mean, those of us who've been around a little bit longer, and a lot of people have been here a lot longer than me, have seen some stuff. And we need to try to avoid that. And I don't think it's a violation of member rights when it's clearly spelled out ahead of time. If the petitions were not a violation of member rights, when anyone can be nominated, we don't have a nominating committee, any of that, there's no reason, I don't think, why we can't stop wasting time with these write-ins. Mr. Latham.
And I'm going to steal a little bit of Tom Roulette's thunder, but he took his hand down, I see. So in our discussion, which is open to anybody, he proposed just adding language, write-in votes will not be recorded. I support that. I support some other suggestions that have been made in this discussion, but also just expressed a concern about whether write-ins would calculate or be counted toward calculating the winning threshold. So I think any solution would just perhaps need to address that as well, unless people want to tell us it does or it does not, and then we know the answer, but we might want to be explicit about that. So that's it.
And we are at our closing, so we're going to continue this discussion next time, unless there's a motion to extend time. But I want to answer your question, Mr. Latham. The way approval voting is calculated, it's by ballot, not by vote. So a ballot could have 100 names on it. It's still just one ballot. If the ballot's turned in, it's counted in the denominator. Write-ins don't affect that.
Madam Chair, I move to extend to 10 o'clock. Sorry, 10 minutes.
Is there
10 o'clock-
any,
10 o'clock where I'm at.
and if we do extend, then we'll be hearing from Mr. Seebeck and Mr. Roulette and Ms. Arrowood. Is there an objection to extending by 10 minutes? Just speak it if you have an objection. Hearing none. Mr. Seebeck?
Well, there was something that Mr. Brown mentioned in the chat, and he's right, that the voting process does need to be sped up in general. The write-in problem is part of that. It's not really germane to the whole write-in question, but the idea of adjusting the convention rules so that there is a vote clock, for lack of a better term, X amount of minutes for votes to be cast before we move on to the next item of business, if we can, whether it's entertaining something else while we're tallying in between things or however we do it, would also improve that. The idea, though, of limiting the number of write-ins, however, to per person for the number of offices available, if you've got 10% of the convention in California, which is 100 and some odd delegates, each casting 7 different write-in numbers for judicial committee with no real candidates, you're talking 700 to 840 different write-ins by itself. I don't know how tenable that is. So something to think about is, yeah, we should speed it up, but we got to figure out the idea of after the first ballot might not be a bad idea either. So I'm just throwing these out for food for thought.
And yes, that's the purpose. So hopefully people will come with some proposals. Mr. Roulette and then Ms. Arrowood.
I was just going to talk about the history of the Libertarian Party conventions of the 1980s, but you guys, if you want to look that up, you can, and I won't take your time.
Ms. Arrowood?
Yes, I have a couple points that are in Roberts. When it comes to nominations, if there are X number of slots or positions to be filled, that is the only amount that a person can nominate. In other words, if there's 5 empty positions, you can only nominate 5, no more. I also wanted to mention that in a roll call vote, if you're not sure or you need another minute to think or two, it's allowable to answer pass. Pass does not mean abstain. It means check with me later or check with me before the chair announces the result. That's it.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Arrowood. Yes, and in roll call voting, you can always, if you're still thinking about it, you're gathering your wits, you can, or you just really want to see how everyone else is voting, you can tactically pass. I can tell you on the LNC sometimes so everyone passes and then it ends up back to the person who passed to begin with, which is always fun. But yes, you can always do that if you're still gathering your thoughts or you're trying to be tactical. Okay, we are now at 8:54, so it's about 1 minute away from being done. I would like to just give one last opportunity. If there's any members of the public here that have any comment, I like to, when we have time, to give an opportunity for that. Normally, I keep the room open for another 15-20 minutes. I cannot do that tonight. I am getting ready to leave for New Hampshire. I'm their convention parliamentarian, got a lot to do before that. So unfortunately tonight I cannot leave the room open. So now is the time. If a member of the public or a committee member has something that's kind of off agenda that they would like to address to the body, just raise your hand if you have that. All right, doesn't look like anyone does. So we will, let me give you the next meeting date before we adjourn. It is February 9th, another Thursday, the same time. And where we will start is with what was agenda item number 5, but it's proposal F with Mr. Latham's. We'll be moving a substitute once proposal F is moved. And those are linked, and I'll get a new agenda out to you guys soon. Okay, we are then adjourned at 8:55. Thank you so much, everyone.
Madam Chair.
Were you?
Ms. Harless,
Yes.
I think, aren't we picking up here next time?
Oh, yes,
Candidate
sorry.
elimination.
Yes. We're finishing. If there's any further discussion, the informal discussion on the right end, you are correct. It's just that no one's hands were raised. So I will give an opportunity if anyone wishes to add anything further to the informal discussion, and then we'll move to the candidate elimination proposal F.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Have an awesome night.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Karen Ann.